Ladies and gents, welcome. I'm TCaptainX. We had a surprise buff in Nerf kind of patch come out just the other day, and it's really shaken up the long range meta in Warzone. So let's kind of dive in and explain what changed and what is the new meta. First, the DM10, which has been insanely strong, did get a pretty hefty nerf. Essentially, they nerfed the damage areas outside of the chest. So if you only hit chest shots, it'll still have that same crazy good TTK. But as soon as you accidentally hit like an arm, stomach, leg, that TTK is going to drop and take an extra bullet, basically. Also nerfed the bullet velocity, and then also nerfed the ADS speed. It'll still be a great BR option, but definitely not going to be a meta option on Resurgence. And then the Krig C, which has been extremely dominant over the last season plus, also got a nerf. Similar story here. They nerfed those damage areas away from the chest. So if you're not hitting as many chest shots, you can get a lower TTK. And then also they actually nerfed the recoil, the sustained recoil. So basically this means the longer you're on the trigger, the worse that recoil is going to get. So at longer ranges, you're going to feel that. It is still very low recoil. It's still very good, but it is a little bit less. And then they also reduced the mag 2 from 70 to only 60. Ames 85, which has kind of been, just overshadowed by a lot of things, got a few buffs, a buff to its range, and then also a headshot multiplier buff. So it'll kind of be a good option here. Definitely gonna sneak into the meta. GPR got a very, very nice buff. Some range buffs, also a increase to the lower torso multiplier, which will give it a better TTK essentially at longer ranges, and a little bit of a faster ADS. So GPR is going to be a great option on Resurgence. Kilo got a bit of a bullet velocity buff. And then one thing to point out is no changes to the TR2. So the TR2 is still going to be great. We're going to talk about that here in a second. And no SMG changes. So the LC10 is still going to be that top tier SMG. Got a time to kill chart here of kind of all the different top options, and this has included them with attachments. So the first thing you'll see is the DM10, which is this like kind of ugly green color. It is way back here. Now, if I change this to chest TTK, it gets really good. And that's because, again, as soon as you miss chest shots, the time to kill kind of sucks here. As the front runners, you will see the TR2 is absurdly good at long range. It essentially has no damage range drop off, but the TR2, it is a semi-auto gun. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to actually achieve these TTKs and achieve it with those fast fire rates. The Krig C is in the white line here, and it used to be one of the top dogs for a long range TTK, but it's kind of just in the mix now. It doesn't really stand out. So the Krig C is still a great option, but not going to be S tier. You'll see the GPR in the green line. It's always had a great close range TTK, but now with some of the buffs, it's got better ranges, and at long range, it's still going to compete and have a solid TTK. It's going to shine more on Resurgence, but it'll be a decent big map option as well. Ames 85 is another interesting one. I don't think it'll be an S tier Resurgence option because in the yellow line here, you're going to see at kind of the mid range, like the 40 to 60. It's kind of near the back of the pack, and that's where a lot of our AR fights are happening. But at long ranges beyond 60 meters, it is the second fastest TTK AR here, just behind the Cypher in orange. The Cypher, a little bit more recoil gun, but it is going to be a gun that is going to be rewarded by high skill players. If you can hit your shots with the Cypher, it is a S tier option, especially on Resurgence. And then lastly, we've got the Swat, which the Swat, it's been good. The Grau, it's going to be great for both Resurgence and BR. It kind of is like the do it all. It's good at everything, but great at nothing. Don't forget about the Kilo. The Kilo in its first damage range is great, very low recoil. The problem with the Kilo is after that last damage range drop off, the time to kill just gets really, really slow. So very solid Resurgence option. Probably not the best for BR though. All right, and then to just really simplify this stuff for you guys, I've broken this down into S, A, and B tier. S tier obviously being the best for Resurgence and for big map battle royale. So the TR2 is going to be S tier for both modes along with the Grau. You really can't go wrong with either of these. TR2 will be rewarded by higher skill players who can use semi-auto guns and hit their shots at longer ranges. When it comes to Resurgence, the GPR is going to be a fantastic option. Very good handling, great closer range TTKs, kind of your do-it-all type gun. And then the Cypher, I would say, is kind of low S tier, high A tier. If you have great recoil control, the Cypher is an S tier gun, but it's just a little bit harder to use compared to, a GPR or a Grau. A lot of other good A tier options, Ames, even the FFAR. They just show that TTK Charts has great TTKs, but just a lot of recoil, so it's hard to use. Kilo, even the AMAX is another good one. Krig C, still a solid option, but definitely probably falls to like high B tier, low A tier. And then DM10, not really worth using on Resurgence anymore. And then for BR, the big difference is the Ames 85, because it has that great long range TTK plus a low recoil, does slip into kind of low S tier for BR. A tier, a lot of options here. I would say the Krixie and DM10 come back into A tier when it comes to BR, and then FAR and AMAX. And then lastly, I do have a quick sniper support breakdown. Really the top two by far are the GPR and FFAR on both maps. Personally, I like the GPR a tad more, a little bit less TTKs, slower TTKs, but a lot less recoil in the FFAR. FAR, better TTKs, a little bit more recoil. LC10 would also be a great option just because it's so dominant, but it's just going to lack the range and versatility like these ARs do. Before I jump into loadouts, I want to quickly remind you guys that Aim Controllers is having a huge sale, the one price, no limit sale. Basically, the price is capped at $209 with my code TCaptainX at aimcontrollers.com. These controllers have 4 reprogrammable paddles, so I can side cancel very easily. It's got the digital tap mouse click buttons, and then it's also got the custom analog stick sight, so I have a tall right stick. And the new feature they have are the TMR sticks. These are basically Hall effects so that you will never get stick drift, but they feel way more accurate, way more precise than traditional Hall effects. They feel just like a regular analog stick, but with no stick drift. So again, code TCaptainX, aimcontrollers.com. So jumping into some loadouts here, this is the GPR sniper support. This one, it is just great. Very good handling, kind of does it all. Several ways to build this. I like to keep it suppressed and run an optic. You can go iron sights though. I'm only going mag 1 and we're going ergonomic and balanced stock, just that way it has some really good handling. And then this is my HDR build, same build I've been using for quite a while. This is the max bullet velocity, but also max ADS that you can achieve with that max bullet velocity. Kilo 1-for-1, again, a few different ways you can build this one. You can swap between reinforced or gain twist. You can swap between recoil springs or over pressured, but this one really easy to use. Generally want to maximize that damage range for resurgence. I'll throw in a few extra SMG loadouts. The LC10 is hands down the best SMG, but the Ladra is a good off-meta option. I would say the C9 and Ladra and then maybe the Compact are kind of the A tier SMG. So this is a C9 build if you want to use something off-meta. Ames 85. So again, this is going to be an S tier option on BR, but probably still a great option to run on Resurgence as well. One thing to note is that they did buff visual recoil on 2x and 3x optics. So it's not Warzone 1 level good, but the higher zoom optics now are a little bit easier to use, and on low recoil guns like the Ames, it is probably worth using. Generally with all my ARs, I'm generally going mono, vertical foregrip, mag 2. The one thing that you can always change is whether you go gain twist or reinforce. Just personally, I like the more bullet velocity, but you know, especially on Resurgence, you might want to consider going reinforce with a little bit extra range. And then if you want less recoil, generally going compensator is going to be your best bet. I know they did buff attachments like the ported comp and the muzzle, but the compensator is just better overall at controlling recoil. All right, moving into some of the S tier resurgence options. First, the Cypher. I do think this gun benefits and really becomes S tier if you're okay using the iron sights. Iron sights are not amazing, but they're perfectly fine, I would say. And so if you can use these, you can go recoil springs, and then the recoil really becomes not bad. And this gun has just such good TTKs. Again, you could go even lower recoil with compensator, but then otherwise same kind of build as usual. Gain twist, vertical foregrip, mag 2, and recoil springs. Then we've got the Grau. Of course, this is the Swat 5.56 marksman rifle with the Grau conversion kit. Now we cannot run a barrel on this one, but we'll go monolithic foregrip and then full auto mag. And then the 5th attachment, you can really either go rear grip like quick draw for faster ADS. This does give the Grau way faster ADS than a lot of other ARs, so it makes it more competitive up close. Or you could go something like an optic, like a 2 or 3x if you don't like the iron sights. Then we've got the GPR. This is the long range build for the GPR. This is another one that you can definitely go 2x or 3x. The recoil is not bad. I've got a pretty cool blueprint here, the Eternal Strife. It doesn't really give you an advantage, but it does look pretty cool. So for this one, I am going mono, gain twist, foregrip, and then mag 2. If you do get a chance to go gunfighter, I will generally add these 3 attachments for almost any AR. Usually quick draw grip for faster ADS, combat stock for flinch and better strafing speed. If you don't like the fast strafing, just go heavy stock. And then lastly, recoil springs. You could instead go over pressured, but personally, it already has a very fast bullet velocity of 1400. So I think it's plenty. So I'd rather maximize that recoil control. And then last is the TR2, which is probably going to be the best overall gun. I actually thought this was better than the DM10 from the beginning. The only big downside to the TR2 is that you really need to run a compensator on it. If you run a monolithic on it, it is just way too bouncy and just too inconsistent. So you are going to appear on the minimap. So if you don't like that, then you might want to use, a GPR or a Grau. Then we're going gain twist barrel to maximize that bullet velocity. I am not running vertical foregrip on this because this gun doesn't really have any horizontal recoil. It's pretty much just all vertical. So I am going lightweight foregrip, which helps that aiming idle sway. So there's less of that bob. You also could consider something like the precision foregrip as well. Or you could just not run an underbarrel at all. You could run something like overpressured, recoil springs. You could even run a stock like the combat stock because this gun does have a lot of flinch, so that would help with that. And then lastly, Mag 2. This is a gun that I do prefer to run a higher zoom optic like the 3X, but really whichever you prefer. I will say getting gunfighter with this is amazing. It's just so good with gunfighter. So again, I'll add quick draw, combat stock, and then I normally go over pressured on this one because this is going to give it a bullet velocity of 1650, and it is just so good. If you do go gunfighter, this is my Grekhova build that I will run. Another one that's good is the Syrian as well. And then lastly, I want to make sure I showed the LC10. LC10 is hands down the best SMG. Literally just nothing comes close to it. C9, Ladra, Jackal, Compact are all nice, but they really need to nerf the LC10 so that we can open up the SMG meta. This is my build. Suppressor, I go Ranger foregrip on this one because it has basically no recoil. Mag 2, ergonomic, and balance. And then this is the Storm Rage blueprint, which gives it a little bit better iron sights. And then if I get to go gunfighter, I will add reinforced barrel, the Strelok laser, and recoil spring. As far as tacticals and lethals go, I have been running flashbangs a lot in Resurgence. If you are an aggressive player, especially in ranked, flashbangs are really strong after the buff they got like last season. Smokes are still fantastic. Ideally, at least one person on your team, especially if you're playing ranked, should be running smokes. I think big map smokes are way better, but Resurgence, I do like flashbangs a lot. And then lethals, I personally like Semtex. You cannot use impacts anymore in ranked. Impacts in pubs are probably the best. Thermites are also going to be a great option, and then I think frag grenades too. And then if you're a little bit more of a passive player, maybe you're kind of more the anchor on your team, using blast traps and spring mines are also a great option too. Perks, I have been going Survivor, Bomb Squad, and Tempered. So Survivor, great option. Scavenger still really good. Mountaineer is okay on Resurgence, not really worth running on big map. Perk 2, Bomb Squad is awesome, especially in ranked. Now in pubs, I would go Tracker. They did nerf Tracker, but you cannot run Tracker in ranked. Bomb Squad just so nice for avoiding, the blast traps, the prox mines, all that stuff. But if you're not going to run Survivor, Quick Fix is probably what you want to run in Perk 2 instead. And then Perk 3, I just love Tempered. It is just such a good perk of having only 2 plates. But Ghost is extremely strong. There are a lot of teams, especially in ranked, that the entire team is running Ghost. And with how often people pop UAVs, it is extremely strong on both Resurgence or in big map. And then as far as, overkill and gunfighter goes, I am almost always in Resurgence going overkill off rip. If I have a chance to safely get my second loadout though, I will usually get my gunfighter AR. So whether that's, a GPR or a TR2, I rarely will get a gunfighter SMG because it just doesn't add that much more value to the gun in my opinion. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap things up. Hope you found the video helpful. If you did, like, subscribe, come to a stream here on YouTube or Twitch for more, and we'll see you in the next one.